Good day, Mr. Rosser here. Today we're going to learn our way around the Wick Editor that we're going to be using to animate, and we're going to use it to create a simple bouncing ball animation. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing you want to do to get to the Wick Editor is just go ahead and go to Google, and you could even just type in the search Wick Editor, and you'll see it just pops up at the top of the page, or you could just go to wickeditor.com. and go ahead and click on that, and you'll see it will take you to this page. And from this page, you can see there is a tutorial on the home page that is very helpful to watch, so you can refer back to that if there's any further information that you need. Once you're on this page, go ahead and select Launch Web Editor, and that will open the Wick Editor. And so go ahead and click Try It once it opens. So here we go. So here is the basic layout of the Wick Editor, and we're going to go through this step by step. Let's begin here. The first thing you should do whenever you go into an animated project is you should get your settings correct. So go to the top right side of your page and select this gear, and that will open the settings window. In the setting window, there are several things you want to do. The first thing you want to do is name your project. This will make it easy to find whenever you save it. So I'm just going to call this one Bouncing Ball. We're not going to worry about the background color. That's the color of the canvas that you draw on. Right down here, we talked today about frames. This is frames per second. This is where you set that up. Animation is typically 12 to 24 frames per second. Of course, if you make it 24 frames per second, that means you have to draw 24 pictures for every second. So to keep it easier, let's just do 12 frames per second. Now, as far as the size of the canvas, they use a standard 720 by 480. That is fine. We could start with that, and we're just going to go ahead and say Apply. So now that we have our settings, let's get started. The first thing you see when you open it is this big white area on the screen. This is the canvas. This is where you're going to do all of your drawing. So let's go up here to the top bar and take a look at all these different controls. First, you have the cursor. This is just how you switch back to the basic arrow so you can select items. Next to that, you have the brush. The brush will let you draw pictures. You can adjust the thickness of the brush right up here. I'm at a 10 right now. I could make it even thicker if I wanted to. There's a massive line there. Or I could bring it way down if I want it much smaller. I could bring that down even down to a 3 and just get a really thin line. So that's up to you of how thick you want that to be. Then next to that is the pencil, and this draws more like a pencil. Same thing. Has the thickness on it, so I could draw really thick lines or not so thick. If there's something I don't like, the very next tool is the eraser. And the eraser, same thing, I could adjust the size of it, so I'm just going to erase everything that I just drew on here. And I'm just going to make this massive so I can just sweep across this and get everything off that I just drew. Then over here we have the rectangle tool. The rectangle tool will let you draw, of course, rectangles, rectangular shapes. Next to that, you have the ellipse tool. This will let you draw circular type shapes, ovals and circles. Next to that, you have the line. This makes it nice and easy to draw a straight line. And of course, you can adjust the thickness over here. So I can make a thinner line or a thicker line. Makes it nice and easy, even lets me curve it different directions. We're going to get to this later. The path cursor has to do with manipulating the shapes. The text tool is next. This, of course, will let me add text. We will also get to this later. Then there's the fill bucket. The fill bucket allows me to select what color I want my objects to be. So if I want this rectangle to be, let's say, blue, I can select over here. I have the fill bucket selected. I can go to the fill color and I can say blue. And then I'm just going to pour that into that object and it's all blue. It only works on objects that are enclosed. If I try to do this on the background, you'll see I get a message that says this shape you're trying to fill has a gap. That's because there are no borders around this. So we'll get into later how you can add color to the background. And basically that's by adding borders. Then there's the eyedropper tool. If there's a color from one object I want to send to another, so I'm just selecting this blue and then I'm going to send it over to this circle and I can just copy it and then drop that over there. So that's basically this section of your tools. If you come over to this side, there's Canvas Actions. We're not going to worry about that right now. There's the Delete tool where you can completely delete a project. There is the Copy tool where I could select an object. If I go back to my cursor here and select this circle, I could say Copy, and then I could select Paste, and now I have another circle. This tool, the Copy and Paste tool, we'll be using a lot later on. Another thing you'll find yourself using a lot is right here you have the Undo button. I can undo what I just did. I can even go back a few steps. I just undid my copy, or I could redo if I need to go back and redo what I just cleared. Then down at the bottom of the screen, I'm going to go back to the cursor. Down at the bottom of the screen, we have the timeline. You'll see this is the timeline where I'm going to add all my frames for the drawings that I'm going to do. Keep in mind, for every drawing you're going to make, you have to add a frame. So to add a frame, I just simply click. This is the frame I'm on right now, this white rectangle. If I select the next slot over, that creates a new frame, and I can now draw on a new frame. I now have a blank canvas here. And you'll see that I can go back. There's my previous frame. There's my current frame. And there's also layers here, which we'll get into later about adding layers. There is a tween button, which we'll get into later about using that. Going over here to the right on the bottom, kind of just below the canvas, you'll see right here, remember we talked today about onion skinning. This is the onion skin tool. Watch what happens when I select this. You can see the previous picture that I drew. This comes in really handy when you're animating. If I have a picture, let me draw a couple frames here. So I'm going to draw a little stick man here. So this is my previous frame. So there's my stick man, and I don't have the onion skinning tool on right now. I turned it off. Now I'm going to go to the next frame, and I need to be able to see my stick man to know how to move him in the next picture. So I select that onion skinning tool, and now you'll see there's a faint picture. You'll see why this is a whole lot easier than when we did the flip books, because it makes it so you can easily see the previous picture that you drew. So now I can like have his arms adjust a little bit or whatever movement I'm trying to make. Next to that, we have the pan tool. The pan tool will allow me to pan around my picture. Keep in mind, this will not affect how it plays back. So if I move it over here and I'm playing my video, it's not like my animation is going to move around like this. This is only for within the studio for me to get around if I need to get closer. So like right here, I have the zoom button. The plus button. I can zoom way in, but that's not going to be how it plays back. That's just so I can get in and add some fine detail to some of my artwork. Then there's the zoom out, where I can zoom back out. And then there's the recenter button. I just did a bunch of moving around. The recenter will put everything back to where it should be. And then right next to that is the all-important preview play. And I'm just going to hit that, and you can see that that will play what looks like my bizarre modern artwork happening. But that's how you play back your animation. You want to get in the habit of paying close attention to what frame you're working on down at the bottom, because these are all my frames, and sometimes you can start drawing on the wrong frame. So you want to make sure you're on the correct frame.